A man who couldn't move a single muscle taught me more about freedom than all my years of unlimited mobility. This is that story. My name is Michael Rodriguez, and I was America's most successful life coach, teaching millions about limitless potential and ultimate freedom. At 45, I had everything. A $50 million empire, luxury homes worldwide, private jets, and the ability to go anywhere, do anything, anytime. My motto was, break every chain, live without limits. I built my fortune teaching people how to escape their limitations, how to break free from whatever was holding them back. I had written best-selling books about living without boundaries, spoken to packed stadiums about unlimited potential, and built a global brand around the idea that true freedom meant having no restrictions whatsoever. My life was the perfect example of everything I preached. I could wake up in New York and decide to have lunch in Paris. I could buy anything I wanted, travel anywhere I desired, and live exactly how I chose. I was the embodiment of absolute freedom. Then a skiing accident changed everything. In one split second on a mountain in Colorado, Michael went from unlimited freedom to complete paralysis from the neck down. Doctors said I'd never move again, never walk, never even feed myself. The man who taught millions about breaking chains was now trapped in the ultimate prison, his own body. My empire crumbled as I became consumed with rage and self-pity. Everything I had built my identity on, mobility, independence, the ability to go and do whatever I wanted, was gone forever. My wife left, unable to see the man she married become so bitter and broken. Friends disappeared, uncomfortable with my new reality. My motivational speaking career ended overnight. How could someone paralyzed from the neck down teach others about limitless living? The man who taught others about freedom became a prisoner in his own body, dependent on nurses for everything, unable to move even a finger. For 2 years, I lived in bitter isolation, convinced that my life was over, that freedom was impossible when trapped in a motionless body. I had gone from teaching people to break every chain to being bound by chains I could never escape. I was seriously considering ending my life when my nurse brought in a new roommate, David Park, a 28-year-old man who had been paralyzed from birth. Unlike my angry despair, David radiated incredible joy that I couldn't understand. Here was someone in even worse situation than mine. He had never known what it felt like to walk, to run, to move freely. Yet somehow he seemed happier than I had ever been, even in my days of unlimited mobility. David couldn't move anything below his neck, yet he spent his days painting beautiful artwork by holding a brush in his mouth, writing poetry using voice software, and counseling other paralyzed patients who came to him for inspiration. I watched him for weeks, growing more frustrated by his inexplicable happiness. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "How can you be happy trapped in that useless body?" I asked him bitterly one day. "You've never been free, never experienced real life. How can you smile when you're stuck like this?" David looked at me with eyes full of compassion and said something that would shatter my entire worldview. "Michael, you think freedom is about where your body can go, but real freedom is about where your spirit can soar. I've traveled to places in meditation that no private jet could ever reach. I've touched hearts that no amount of money could ever buy. I've experienced Buddha's infinite love in ways that physical movement never taught me." He continued, his voice gentle but profound. "You spent 45 years running around the world but never found true peace. I've been motionless for 28 years, but I'm the freest person I know. Buddha didn't teach us that freedom comes from moving our bodies. He taught us that freedom comes from freeing our minds from attachment, from ego, from the illusion that we are our physical form. In that moment, lying in my hospital bed, I realized I had spent my entire life confusing physical mobility with spiritual liberation, material success with inner freedom. David had been born into what I considered the ultimate prison, yet he had discovered a freedom I had never known, despite all my wealth, all my ability to go anywhere and do anything. He had discovered liberation not by escaping his circumstances, but by transcending them. Buddha teaches us that suffering comes from attachment, David explained. You were attached to your body's abilities, to your independence, to your image of yourself as someone without limitations. When those external things were taken away, you thought you had lost everything. But Buddha would say, you finally had the opportunity to discover what was always there, the freedom of your eternal spirit.
Possible. Together, we founded Freedom Beyond Movement, a revolutionary program teaching that true liberation comes from within, not from external circumstances. I discovered that meditation could take me on journeys more profound than any private jet had ever offered. Serving others from my wheelchair brought more fulfillment than all my past achievements combined. The limitations of my body became the doorway to unlimited spiritual freedom. Our online courses reached millions worldwide, proving that physical limitations cannot cage an awakened spirit. I became a more powerful motivational speaker from my wheelchair than I had ever been standing on stages, because now I was teaching from a place of authentic wisdom rather than just material success. My book, Paralyzed to Paradise, topped bestseller lists globally, showing people that Buddha's freedom isn't about escaping circumstances, it's about transcending them. The story of my journey from physical freedom to spiritual liberation resonated with people everywhere who felt trapped by their own limitations. David and my friendship revolutionized disability advocacy, proving that paralyzed bodies can house the most liberated souls. We created meditation centers in 30 countries specifically for people with disabilities, teaching that Buddha sees not our limitations, but our limitless potential for love and spiritual growth. The centers became sanctuaries where people learned that wheelchairs couldn't confine awakened spirits, that blindness couldn't limit inner vision, that any physical limitation was simply an invitation to discover deeper freedom. Today, Freedom Beyond Movement has helped over 500,000 people discover that true freedom was never about what their bodies could do, but what their spirits could become. We've proven that Buddhist freedom is available to everyone, regardless of their physical circumstances. People write to us daily sharing how they found freedom in their marriages, freedom from addictions, freedom from limiting beliefs, all by learning the lesson David taught me, that real freedom is an inside job. David showed me that I had spent 45 years as a prisoner of my own expectations, trapped by my attachment to physical capability, enslaved by my ego's need to be unlimited. True paralysis wasn't what happened to my body, it was what had happened to my spirit before the accident. The man who couldn't move a muscle became my greatest teacher about movement of the soul. The person society would call disabled was the most enabled person I had ever met. Buddhist freedom flowed through David because he had never confused his identity with his physical form. If you're feeling trapped by your circumstances, limited by your situation, imprisoned by things beyond your control, remember David's gift to me. Real freedom is not about where your body can go, but where your spirit can soar. True liberation doesn't come from changing your external world, it comes from freeing your inner world from the chains of attachment, expectation, and ego. Buddhist freedom is always available, always present, always waiting for us to discover it, not by escaping our limitations, but by transcending them through the unlimited power of awakened consciousness. David taught me that the freest people aren't those with the most mobility. They're those with the most love, the most peace, the most connection to the divine spark that no physical limitation can ever touch. If this message touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to know that their circumstances don't define their potential for freedom. Subscribe to learn how to find liberation regardless of your situation. Comment "Spirit" if you believe that Buddhist freedom transcends all physical boundaries. The paralyzed man showed me that true freedom was never about breaking external chains. It was about realizing that our spirits were never chained at all.